Welcome to Sports Management Podcast, where you will hear interesting sports management professionals share their stories, experiences, and passion for the sports management industry. I am your host, Marcus Philipson. Welcome to episode 159 of Sports Management Podcast. If you have ever learned anything from this show, please show your gratitude by subscribing to the podcast in your podcast app. And if you feel extra generous, leave a 5-star review. This will help the show grow, and the bigger the show, the bigger the guests. Thank you. Today's guest is Adam Breneman, a 3-time All-American athlete, media personality, college football analyst, entrepreneur, speaker, and more. He's the co-founder of the college sports company, previously Mercury, a billion-dollar venture-backed college sports media and production company that creates original content to build brands, talent, and products that connects fans with the team and athletes they love. We spoke about being forced to retire due to injury, why he is not defined by football, starting the college sports company at the perfect time, overcoming adversity in his career, why consistency is so important to him, his podcast Next Up with AB, and much more. Adam Breneman, welcome to Sports Management Podcast.
What's up, man? Appreciate you having me on. Excited for this.
I'm really excited to have you on the show. You're a 3-time All-American athlete. You have an incredible story from first ranked tight end in the nation, getting injured, forced to retire, and now successful in sports media. So let's go back to that day when you were forced to retire. How was that like?
Yeah, it was a tough day. I remember, I had been through a lot in my football career, and a lot of ups and downs, and a lot of good things, but also a lot of bad things. And then, I think the thing that helped me throughout my journey of playing football was that there were always things I wanted to do in life other than just play football. And that's where a lot of young athletes, young players, kind of mess up and put themselves in a bad position when that time comes to stop playing, because all they think about, all they focus on is the singular goal of playing football. And I always had things that interested me other than just the game of football. Now, that doesn't mean I wasn't focused on it fully, but there was always other goals I had in life of when this is done, I want to be in business. I want to be in media. I want to do these other things. I was interested in them. I took school seriously. And I think that's where you see a lot of people that have success post-playing career are the ones who have things they want to do when they're done playing. And then whenever that time comes, you adjust and you adapt, and it stinks that your career's over, but you can easily transition to the next phase because it gets you excited and you're prepared for that moment. So it was a tough moment for me when that happened, because all the goals and dreams, everything I wanted to do in my career was over with football wise, but it was a transition that I was excited for because there were other things I wanted to do than just play football, which made it a little bit easier.
And there's a quote you have said that I think summarizes this really well, and that's that football is what I do, it's not who I am.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite quotes. I've heard, I heard maybe like Tim Tebow or someone say that one time, and I think it's true. Like it's football, and you can replace the word football with any other word or career or passion. Business is what I do, it's not who I am. Media is what I do, it's not who I am. Playing basketball is what I do, it's not who I am. It applies for anyone. And I think if you can allow yourself to not be fully identified by that singular product that you produce or put on the field or how you play on a Saturday, it allows you to kind of be in a good place mentally, again, because you don't know what's going to happen to you in life. Good things happen, bad things happen. One of the only guarantees in life is that you're going to face adversity at some point. And if you can kind of keep that mindset that it's what I do, it's not who I am, it allows you to kind of overcome things and not be as affected when things that aren't what you want happen to you.
I love that. So before we get into what you do now with everything that's going on, let's back up and talk a little bit, how you got into football and your college career and everything. So can you give us your backstory?
Yeah, I was a 5-star recruit in high school in Pennsylvania, and ended up going to Penn State after a long recruiting process. Played 3 years at Penn State, was a freshman All-American, and then ended up transferring to UMass, where University of Massachusetts. Played there for 2 years, 2-time All-American, and then after I got done playing, retired before the NFL draft because of a knee injury, and then got into coaching. Spent 2 years coaching at Arizona State. Was the tight ends coach there, youngest one in the country. And showed me a lot about football, the part I didn't know, right? Like the coaching side, the part of evaluation and talent. And then totally kind of flipped everything on its head and got into media about 2.5, 3 years ago, and went all in on this career I have now of content, business, podcast, everything that I'm doing in this kind of media ecosystem, if you will, has been super exciting.
So was media always something that you wanted to do? You said that you had other passions like during your career. So was media what you knew you wanted to do post-career?
Yeah, there were a few things that I thought I wanted to do. I wasn't really sure. So I knew that I liked business. I knew I liked media. There were things that, I got my MBA when I was playing football at UMass. I got my undergrad in business. Like I always knew I was entrepreneurial, loved the business side of it, but didn't know exactly what path that would take me down. And what I'm in now is a great mix of kind of media and business, right? It allows me to kind of be an operator, be a business guy, be an owner, but also be camera facing and build a following and all that kind of stuff. So it's been really fun. I've enjoyed it. And the media thing is kind of just, it was kind of a byproduct of that. I had all these experiences in football and had this unique credibility that I could talk about. And then I transitioned it from, just something I did to now like it is my career.
And you have started several media companies and you're doing that. You have your own podcast. So this entrepreneurial spirit, where does that come from, you think?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. I think that like being an entrepreneur comes partly from just having belief in yourself, belief that you can do things and that you want to, that at the end of the day, I've always said, I believe that super successful people have a unique sense of self-responsibility where they believe that no matter what happens, good or bad, it is ultimately on them, right? That it's not up to some like fate of the universe, but like they feel like they're in control of a lot of different things. And that's where that's where the entrepreneurial spirit comes from. I think the belief that you don't need to rely on other people, that it's better if you rely on yourself. And that's kind of where it came from for me, is just wanting to bet on myself and build companies. And I also know that I like to do a bunch of different things. Like I like having multiple different things and avenues to go down. So that's been super fun for me to kind of like build different companies and be part of a lot of different projects.
So if we dig into them a little bit, you have your co-founder and vice president of media at Mercury. So $1 billion media company, for example. You have the college sports company. So what are you doing with these different ventures?
Yeah, so we actually, I know it can be kind of confusing, but we rebranded Mercury as the college sports company. So that's one company. So it's now called the College Sports Company. So we're a college sports media and production company that works with big universities and football, basketball programs to build media networks at their schools with their athletes, and kind of the era of this athlete-driven media movement that we've seen, right? Where everyone wants a podcast, everyone wants to do, be part of a show. You got like the Kelsey brothers, those kinds of people. So that's what we do. We build media networks, build shows with players, and then monetize on top of it with advertising and sponsorship and events and things like that, just like any other media company would. But that's been very successful because we've had the ability, partially because of my background, but also the great work we've done and the other people and part of the team, to work with some major schools like Penn State, Oklahoma, Kansas, Kentucky, Clemson, which has been really fun. And yeah, we're a venture-backed business, have a bunch of big investors, and trying to build that to one of the biggest media companies in sports. The other kind of like companies that I operate today would be like my personal media company, which is just like my media assets, my content, my brand deals, my sponsorships, my advertisements, anything I sell, products, things like that, which is, a cash flowing business that does really well and really build off social media. And I do a bunch of things, whether it's, investing in real estate, investing in businesses and startups. I really enjoy the investing game and betting on founders and entrepreneurs. And yeah, that's kind of like what takes up my day to day. And then obviously there's like, a bunch of, I do broadcasting during football season on TV and do a lot of other stuff in media, which is all super exciting.
Yeah, definitely. It sounds really exciting. And going back to the college sports company, and you mentioned that everyone wants, with the Kelsey brothers, they want to have their podcast and so on. And also with NIL, it's kind of the perfect storm now, right? For college sports and these type of things.
Yeah, I mean, we've hit the market with college sports go at the perfect time, right? Where NIL is changing daily, and what NIL really means for athletes. Athlete-driven media is here, where athletes want to be on a podcast. I always tell people that if I would have told Bill O'Brien, who I played for at Penn State, that I wanted to start a podcast when I was playing, he would have laughed me out of the room, right? It would have been a joke. But because of where we're at now with media and where things are at in college sports, it's changed. So we kind of hit the market at the perfect time. Now, one of the only things that matters is speed to market. How fast can we move? We have a quote we say a lot at the college sports company to all of our employees that one of the most important things for us is just the rate of decision making. How many decisions can we make on a daily basis that move us forward? And the rate of decision making is almost more important than if we get the decision right. Like we can deal with making bad decisions. We can deal with pivoting and having to figure out how to overcome things. What we can't deal with is being stagnant and not making decisions. So that's been allowed us to be really successful, and just that we have moved extremely fast at everything we do, almost at times allowing ourselves to make decisions without knowing fully which one we should make. But it's like, let's just move fast and choose something so that we can move forward, and we'll figure it out from there.
Interesting. You're a media company with a social media first type of approach, and the social media obviously is a very fast paced and ever changing environment. So then I agree that it's really important that you're able to make fast decisions and adapt.
Yeah, for sure. I just think that in life in general, there's this sentiment that kind of like that good and bad things can happen to you, and overall, and like you can make good and bad decisions, but really, like, you don't know if something is good or bad until you see how it's going to impact the rest of your life, for the rest of your career, or the rest of your business. Like, you don't know what would have been if you made the other decision. So like, you don't know if that would have been the right decision, right? Like, I look at my football career, and like everyone says, oh, it's so terrible that you got hurt and your knee got hurt. But like, we don't know what would have happened if I didn't get hurt, right? Like, maybe I get hurt even worse. Maybe like you don't know if something's good or bad. Same with decision making. Like, I can make a decision, and I could maybe, and it doesn't go super well, and I can look back and say, well, I should have made the other decision, but should I have? Like, we don't know what would have happened if I made the other decision. Maybe this was actually the best outcome. So I think when you look at things like that, and then ultimately believe that like you can control a lot of it, and that my effort and hard work and our team, the dedication and the hours we're going to put in, and the people we have around us, that it will make that we can make things right. Like, we talk a lot about that. Like, we can make it right. Even if we make the wrong decision, we can make it right. And that the most important thing is just moving fast and being quick. So I think when you have those two things and understand that, it can really, help you make quick decisions and believe in yourself ultimately.
Is that a skill you think you have learned from football? Making quick decisions is something you have to do in football as well, obviously.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's part of it. I think the self-belief, and like when you're playing football or playing sports at a high level, it's ultimately on you. Like, you have to go make plays. There's no one when the ball's in the air and you got to go catch it. Like, there's no one to go to or look to for help, right? It's just you. And I think that's what everyone wants. At the end of the day, like, you want a chance to go out there and in business, whether it's business, sports, whatever, like, make a big play in the big moments. And I think that's definitely helped me throughout my career. The other thing I think that football and being an athlete has helped with is just like pure work ethic and understanding what the kind of commitment things take to actually be successful. I think a lot of people say they want to be successful. They don't actually know what that means. I talk to friends or colleagues or just people I meet, and they say, like, they tell me what they want, right? Like, oh, I want to be a millionaire. I want to build a business. But like, what are you willing to give up to get there? That's ultimately what it's all about. It will take sacrifice. It'll take hard work. And a lot of people want things. If everyone wants to be a millionaire, right? But not many people are actually willing to do the things that it takes to be a millionaire, or do the things it takes to be successful. So that's what it's all about ultimately. And I think that being an athlete and at a high level has certainly helped my perspective on that.
So what would you say drives you? Because you have been at the top of the field in football, and now also in the business setting.
Yeah, great question. I would say that a few things. I think one, like, I think I've had a lot of people that have believed in me throughout my career, football, post-playing career. I think wanting to make a lot of those people proud and live up to that is important to me. I also have, I do have a sense of that I've always felt like since I was young that I would be capable of doing really cool things. I always kind of believed in myself, and that, and credit to my parents, that they did a great job of like instilling in me that like, you are capable, like, you are smart, and you're like, kind of making me believe in myself, but also making me like really self-accountable, where like, I always talk about how, like, I had friends growing up who's, when they made a bad play in Little League baseball, like, their dad was like blaming all the other parents, right? All the other kids, right? Like, they threw you a bad pitch. You shouldn't be playing third base. Like, my parents were like, if I made a great play, it was like the greatest thing of all time. Like, you're awesome. You're great. If I made a bad play, it was like, you weren't very good today, right? Like, figure it out. And I think that I give my parents a lot of credit in instilling that in me and my siblings, of like, really, really important to have self-accountability. Like, it is on you ultimately. There's no one else to blame. There's no one else to look at. It's on you. And so I think that belief and like kind of being raised that way made me believe that I'm capable of really big things and great things. And that's what I want to ultimately achieve, like to go prove that. If I don't do that, I feel like it's almost like a waste of what I've been given or the way I've been raised, or a waste of talent. So I think I think that's a huge thing. Like you see people all the time who have talent, who may be smart, who may have charisma, who may be educated, but don't end up achieving what they're capable of. And that just comes from mindset. So I think that's a big part of it for me too.
That's really interesting. Something that interests me as well is preparation. And there is this quote that failing to prepare is preparing to fail.
Yeah, love that.
In your football career, and also now when you're, preparing for a podcast or a media, when you're an analyst and so forth, do you have a specific routine, or how do you prepare in order to perform at your best?
Yeah, preparing looks different depending on what I'm doing. Obviously, like whether podcasts, interviews, business stuff, meetings. I pitch our business to investors all the time. Whether it's broadcasting a TV game, it looks different. But I think the overall theme is that I know for myself that like the only time I get anxious or like feel anxiety or get nervous for things is if I feel underprepared, right? So I can tell pretty easily if I'm going into something. If I feel anxious, I'm like, well, I didn't prepare very well for this. I think the feeling of anxiety, especially for me, comes from not taking action when I know I should be taking action. Like that's the only time I feel anxious or get anxiety about things. So like that comes back to preparation. And I don't think that I think it's important to prepare. Also important to trust yourself and that you can figure it out a lot of times. But I mean, it just comes down to like time management and how important is it to you? Like if you don't prepare for what you're doing and you don't want to prepare, then what you're telling the world and ultimately yourself is that this isn't very important to you. Like this isn't something you care about at a super high level, or you would be preparing. So I come back to that a lot, and there's certainly times I'm underprepared. Like I'll admit that. Obviously with time management and everything, like it's hard, but you do things that are important to you. So I would say to anyone, like if there's things in your life that you're not preparing for, that you feel unprepared for, that you're not doing, and you for some reason you don't want to do it, probably tells you that like this isn't what you should be doing, because it's probably not very important to you. And probably should like figure out some other avenue that you want to go down that you look forward to preparing for.
I like that. So obviously we mentioned before that you had to retire due to injuries, and I also like to talk about setbacks in careers, and you had quite a few. You got injured several times, retired and then unretired, right? And then had to retire again due to injury. Also was fired from your coaching job. So how have you bounced back from these setbacks in your career?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a bunch of setbacks in my career, whether it was, getting hurt, whether it was what happened when I left Arizona State, as you mentioned. I think one thing I've learned in my life and had to work on as I got older was just like not listening to the outside noise. When I was young, I was really, really in touch with what everyone was saying about me all the time, right? Like when I was a 5-star recruiter, an All-American in college, I remember like reading my own press clippings, looking at my name on Twitter, seeing what people were tweeting about me, seeing when it was good. I mean, my mom had a scrapbook of all the great articles written about me, right? I was listening and reading everything about myself when it was really good. And I was really high, right? I felt really good. But then what happens is as soon as some adversity hits early on in my career, get hurt. Things aren't going well. Bad articles start getting written. People start writing, will Breneman ever play at Penn State? Is he a bust? Well, because I listened to it when it was really, really good, I now also listen when it's really bad. And then I get in this really deep valley of reading everyone saying bad things about it, where I've learned that if you can just block it all out and not listen to what people say at all, like it doesn't matter at the end of the day. They don't know what they're talking about. No one knows anything about you really. So if you can just block it all out and stay even all the time, it allows you to handle the ups and downs really well and not get as high and as low. Because if you listen when it's really good, you will also listen when it's really bad. And I struggled with that early on in my career, and I got into some ruts of like listening to the outside noise. And now, like it's cool. I appreciate when people say good things and talk about what I've done, but I just try to kind of not get affected by it, not look for it, not read it, and stay level headed all the time. Because when something does happen, like I'll be able to just kind of be like, this is just part of the journey, right? And don't listen to what everyone else is saying because I didn't listen when it was really good. And the ability to kind of be level and be the same person every single day helps a lot when that happens. And I've had to use that now in some of the adversity in my career.
And now when you're on TV as well, I'm sure that there are, a lot of opinions as well. And with social media being what it is. So
yeah,
not listening to the troll, so to speak, but maybe do you have some people in your life, some mentors or someone that you can listen to in order to improve?
For sure. I mean, there's definitely people in my life, whether it's, family members, close friends, business partners. I have a media coach who works with me on my broadcasting stuff. So there's definitely people in your life you listen to. I think that, the overall blocking out the noise is like all those people who aren't part of your circle, right? That aren't part of the life, that won't tell you, you want the people that'll be there for you in the ups and the downs, and who kind of is there for you through it all. So yeah, I do think it's important to have that circle of like advisors and mentors that you can go to, because ultimately in this journey, you're going to want to talk to people and kind of talk it out and get some advice.
In your family, you're a sporting family. I've seen your siblings are doing sports. Your father was a NCAA footballer as well. So is that something that we mentioned that you went, of course, to college football, but from the beginning when you got into sports, was that something that was natural to you, that you should play sports?
Yeah, my dad played college football, was a tight end. So like I kind of grew up wanting to be a tight end and playing college football in my dad's footsteps. He played at the D3 level. So that was a big part of it. And my brother's a great athlete. My sister's a great athlete. My mom was an athlete in high school. So, we come from an athletic family. Sports are super important. But, I think that, again, part of it is like I go back to like the battles in the backyard with my brother and sister growing up, right? Like it makes you tough. It makes you learn how to compete and learn how to, learn how to battle. Like my brother talks a lot about how I'm the oldest. So how I would kind of beat up on him in the backyard and how that made him tough through his career then when he played Division I quarterback. So yeah, it definitely played a big role in it.
And was it always football, considering that both that your father played, but also your size, you're a big guy?
Yeah. I mean, football was always what I was best at. I played baseball and basketball in high school, but football was always kind of the number one thing for me. I started getting recruited my freshman year, so like I didn't really have a choice. I felt like at that point.
I see. Now, when you have been in the business world for a while, so there are a lot of young listeners on the podcast that wants to get into the sports industry. So what would be your best advice for someone with aspirations to work in sports?
Man, great question. I would say my best advice for someone who wants to make it in sports would be the only way to make it is through hard work. Like there's no shortcut. It's the only path is through outworking everybody else. I think one of the things that I've been good at, and there's things I'm not good at. I know I talk a lot about like what's worked for me in this is just consistency. Is like showing up every single day. My team talks a lot about like no matter what happens, like we will put out content that day. We will show up. You'll see us in your social feeds. We'll put out a podcast every week. Like just the consistency of things is what's allowed us to be successful. Like we have a quote that we say to our team that our consistency is our differentiator. And that like for some people differentiator may be like, well, the quality of the content, the camera angles, like ours is the consistency. And I think that helps a lot. And anything you want to be great at is just like continuously showing up every single day. The more at bats you get, and the more chances you get to, whether it's social media, like the more chances you get to go viral, the more chances you get if you show up to meetings to meet someone that can change your career, the more chances you get to, if you're sending out emails to get an internship, the more chances you get to get a response, the more work you put in. Every single one is an at bat, and hard work is the only way to get there. So, and consistency is that hard work. So I think that's really what I come back to. And I think it's the most important thing is like people nowadays, we talked about it earlier, like aren't willing to always put in the work it takes to be successful. Everyone wants to be successful. Who's willing to actually do the work to be successful is ultimately what differentiates those who make it and those who don't.
Yeah, I love that. And Chris Williamson is saying that all the time, that the consistency beat talent.
All that.
He has this podcast statistic that you are in the top 1% of podcasters, but making 21 episodes. And as you said, like I'm following you now for quite some time, and you and your team are just putting out content all the time.
Yeah, it's a great stat. Yeah, I love that podcast.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, we talked about the bumps on the road in your career, but just to close that one, except for injuries and some work, has there been any other bumps on the road in your career?
I mean, there's bumps all the time, right? Like there's bumps every day. Like I got an email this morning I didn't want to get, right? And daily, you're going to have things that don't go your way. It's all about how you respond to it, right? It's all about how you can move on. Can you kind of weather the storm? Another trait a lot of successful people I've been around have is the ability to turn negatives into positives. So like their mind is able to like say, okay, that sucked, but like here's how we can fix it, or here's how it can be a positive. And I think I've done that somewhat in my career. Like, got fired at Arizona State, turn it into a media career. Got hurt playing football, like turn it into coach. Like, you kind of find a way to adapt and make negatives into positives. So for anyone, like, you're going to have negative things that happen to you. That's just life. Like, no, it's not going to be perfect and easy all the time, but how can you respond and adapt when that happens?
Love that. So I like to ask a networking question as well on this podcast. So who from your network do you think would be a good guest on this podcast?
Oh, great question. I would say I think a great one would be my co-founder, who's the CEO of the college sports company, Porter Grieve, who started that with me. He'd be a great guest on here. My buddy Christian Hackenberg played quarterback in the NFL, works for us now at college sports company, would be awesome. I think I got a few that I could definitely connect you with. I think you do a great job of talking about kind of like life and the journey to get to this point. So, I think they'd be great.
Yeah, those sound awesome. As we mentioned, you have your media company, you have your podcast Next Up. So if someone wants to, follow your great work, how can they find you, reach out to you?
Yeah, social media is just my name at Adam Breneman. My podcast is Next Up with AB. Next Up with AB, my initials. So you can find anywhere you listen to podcasts. Have a bunch of big time college football coaches and players on there. So that's fun, and put out a bunch of content in the football space and kind of doing more and more business and entrepreneurial stuff too, like this. So would love anyone to throw me a follow.
Definitely, I'll put the links in the show notes below as well.
Awesome.
Adam, thank you so much for taking the time to be on Sports Management Podcast.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. Keep up the great work.
Thank you for listening to the Sports Management Podcast. Please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. Also, feel free to leave a comment about what you thought about this episode. If you want to get in contact with me, send an email to sportsmpodcast@gmail.com or hit me up on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram @sportsmpodcast.